Hi friends, how did each legend get their heirloom? And what is the significance to each legend? Today, we are looking at the backstory of every heirloom in Apex Legends. This is part 1, so please do like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Starting with Wraith's heirloom, it's called the kunai. Kunais were traditionally used in farming tools and by stone masons to shape stone work. The kunai would later be adopted by ninjas and used as a weapon. So how did this tool end up in Wraith's hands? Well, Wraith gave it to herself. Okay, that sounds a little complicated, so let me explain. The Wraith we have today isn't actually the Wraith from our dimension. The original Wraith, let's call her Voidwalker Wraith, from our dimension was a skilled one in using dimensional travel. This is after she was experimented on by a one Amir Singh, with experiments she herself designed and then volunteered for. Those experiments led to her hearing voices in her head, and she ended up in an Ares mental institution. Eventually, she would build up enough strength, mentally and physically, to escape the facility and start trusting the voices. She would go on to develop her fighting skills and her ability to use her interdimensional travel abilities. Over time, she was able to step through the void and control interdimensional portals. On her travels, she acquired a kunai. The kunai picked up dimensional energy from Wraith's abilities, hence the blue glow and the mini portals that are created every time it makes contact with an object. One day when our Wraith is looking at IMC computers to track down Amir Singh, she finds out that he's actually deceased. At that moment, Syndicate soldiers walk in, attempting to destroy evidence of the questionable experiments that were there on the systems before. After a fight, Voidwalker Wraith jumps into a portal. While in the void, she hears another Wraith from another dimension struggling, and she decides to go and help her. Voidwalker Wraith uses the kunai to take the bindings of this less confident version of Wraith. It's a Wraith that's struggling to come to terms with the experiments done on her. The alternate version of Wraith fears leaving the facility, so Voidwalker Wraith shows her her face and gives her the kunai. Together, they walk through the IMC facility, the other dimensional Wraith still holding the kunai as protection. As the security guards try to stop them, the other dimensional Wraith manages to use the kunai to defend herself. Before the two Wraiths can leave through a portal, Amir Singh turns up. In this alternate dimension, he's still alive. In the end, Voidwalker Wraith, our original Wraith, stays behind in this other dimension in order to save the life of the alternate version of Wraith, but also to get revenge against Amir Singh and complete her own personal mission. Ultimately, the two Wraiths end up swapping places, so the Wraith we have today isn't actually our original Wraith. Oh, and the kunai? Well, I think it represents a lot for Wraith. It represents the strength and belief that was given to her by Voidwalker Wraith. It's also a connection to Voidwalker Wraith and all the other versions of Wraith across the dimensions. Oh, and by the way, this version of Wraith that's now in our dimension doesn't have all of her memories back, so the kunai is also kind of a connection to her lost memories. Anyway, that's the origin story of Wraith's heirloom, the kunai, and a little bit about what it means to her. Let's move on to our own Bloodhunder, but you can call them Bloodhound. Bloodhound's heirloom is given to them early on in their story. After losing their parents when they were young, Bloodhound goes to live with their uncle Arthur in a village near World's Edge on Talos. Arthur and the village believe in the old ways. These old ways being old Nordic pagan beliefs, such as believing in various deities like Odin and Thor, and also believing that you'll go to Valhalla when you die. Valhalla being the Hall of Slain Warriors, who lived there blissfully under the leadership of god Odin. But to get to Valhalla, you would have to die in battle, with honour. After Bloodhound's parents' death, they go to live with their uncle Arthur, who teaches them in the old ways. But to be fully integrated with the village and accepted, they would have to fulfill their rite of passage by killing a prowler that had strayed from the path. Arthur gifted Bloodhound with a special handcrafted axe from their very own village, which is Bloodhound's heirloom Ravenbite. On Bloodhound's solo mission to hunt the prowler, they run into a much larger beast. Bloodhound has to use the new ways in the form of a charge rifle to slay the beast. To complete the rite of passage and become one of the people, Bloodhound has to return with the prize of the hunt, and so they take the horn back to the village and to their Uncle Arthur as an offering to the Allfather. However, Uncle Arthur is able to sense the charge rifle was used and is angry at Bloodhound. As Arthur returned to his hut, Bloodhound leaves Ravenbite in the stand outside Arthur's house, for they were not granted worthy under their uncle. Unfortunately, the beast wasn't slain and arrives to attack the village. The beast attacks Bloodhound first, but luckily Arthur arrives with Ravensbite to defend Bloodhound and the village. He fights valiantly and bravely uses Ravensbite to deal damage to the big beast. Sadly though, the beast is too big for Arthur and sent him flying into a tree. Bloodhound has to act fast to save the village and their people, and uses the explosive core of the charge rifle to send the beast scaring away. Sadly, the blow was too much for Arthur, and it is too late. He is on his way to Valhalla for dying in victory. Before he dies though, he grants Bloodhound worthiness and crowns them the new leader in the old ways and the new ways. His final dying act of love and respect is to give Bloodhound the Ravensbite axe as a prize for completing their mission. For Bloodhound, it wasn't over though. They went face to face with the beast that has slain their uncle. In a fight to the death, Bloodhound uses their heirloom to hit some kind of liquid nitrogen pipe, causing the beast to freeze instantly, and unfortunately for Bloodhound, leaving them needing the use of a special mask. They were able to complete their mission though, to slay the beast for their uncle Arthur.
For Arthur.
You can see Bloodhound's heirloom here is literally a family heirloom given to them by their uncle Arthur, but it's more than just a hand-me-down. This is something Bloodhound earned, and in Arthur's dying moments, he gave Bloodhound this final prize, this final gift. Now, every time Bloodhound carries their heirloom, it's in memory of their uncle, and it's what helps keep Bloodhound grounded in the old ways. So that's a bit about Bloodhound's heirloom, how they got it, and what it really means to them. The final heirloom origin story I'm going to cover in today's video is Bangalore's. So Bangalore gets her heirloom almost by accident, but let me start a bit before the heirloom comes into the picture so you've got some context. This story starts with Bangalore in the middle of the Frontier Wars. She's a new IMC soldier that's only recently completed basic training, and she's involved in the fight on Gridiron, which is essentially the last battle of the Frontier War. She comes face to face with a pilot that has a pilot's knife. Bangalore, being a newly trained soldier, she's no match for this pilot and is injured. She's taken for care on board the Hestia 1, where her brother Jackson, after fearing losing his sister and questioning the morality of the war, calls for the ship to leave the fight. I imagine losing his brother Zeke not long before the war on Gridiron also played heavily on his mind and influenced his decision. The ship ended up jumping through slip space and crashes on Storm Point in the Outlands. Bangalore's memories aren't super clear when she comes to after the ship crash lands, but as she starts piecing together what happens, she realizes that Jackson abandoned the war, and she's not very happy about it. She attempts to contact IMC for support and asking for an evac with an SOS call. Commander Scryer acknowledges the signal and turns up on Storm Point. Unfortunately for Bangalore and her brother, he's not there to take them back to Gridiron. He's there to kill her brother for being a traitor to the IMC. Of course, Bangalore steps in to defend her brother, but Commander Scryer isn't a good person and fires rockets on the civilians before fighting Bangalore and her brother. During a mid-air fight with Bangalore, she grabs his pilot's knife and disables his jump jets, sending her falling into a warehouse. Jackson and Bangalore go face to face with Commander Scryer. The pilot clearly dominates most of the fight, even taunting both of them. As he turns his cloak on, he perhaps gets a little too overconfident, and Bangalore takes advantage of that. She stabs him with a wooden splint and regains the pilot's knife. She's able to kill Commander Scryer with his own knife as Jackson holds him down. Bangalore keeps the pilot's knife as she and Jackson head to the commander's ship. Jackson acknowledges that the IMC will keep coming for him, and Bangalore promises to stick with him as they go on the run. You see here, Bangalore's heirloom is something she obtained from defeating a pilot, and therefore it's hers. Of course, she got it defending her brother, a brother we know she cares very much about and would do anything to find. So this heirloom is more than just a knife, it is a symbol of her brother, and that's why she holds it so dearly. So that gives you some background as to how Bangalore got hold of her heirloom and what it really means to her. And that also brings us to the end of part 1 for this origin story for every heirloom video. I hope you enjoyed it and found it interesting. Keep a lookout for part 2, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you later.